First thing we're gonna look at is the team schedule, and here you see the Marlins. I think they have a very, very, very tough schedule. They only have 44 wins. I think the Tigers and Orioles might contend them to maybe be better than them. But see, look, they have a series against the Brewers, the Pirates, the Giants. You see the Nationals, the Phillies, the Mets. See, they have a really, really tough one. But now if you look over at the Orioles, oh my gosh. They have the Rangers, the Dodgers, and the Red Sox. Now I know this seems kind of easy, but they might get swept a couple times. And sweeps is like 3 or 4 losses. So that's pretty bad. But look at the Royals schedule. This is pretty tough. Now, I know like some of the tougher teams might not be as tough, but still I think KC has probably the toughest schedule. They have Oakland, Minnesota, I already said Atlanta, then Minnesota again. So, who do I think has the toughest schedule? This is a really tough one because look at all these wild card teams. Now, Baltimore has a few good ones, and KC, they have like a lot of good ones. But at the end, it's really tough to decide. But I think I might go with, this is tough, but I think I'm going with the Marlins. I think the Royals and Marlins are gonna struggle. Cause like look at, they got the Brewers, the Giants, they got a lot of tough schedules as well. The Royals just have a few really tough schedules. Like KC just has like a little bit kind of left. But still, I think these teams are good, but still. And Detroit, they also have a pretty tough schedule, and so do the White Sox, but they both don't have as tough as a schedule as the other ones. So these are what I reveal. So yeah, I think Marlins are kind of screwed. Orioles, they're kind of screwed, but still, I think the Royals and the Marlins are the ones that are mostly screwed. But now let's look at a new area, the prospects. And prospects, like the September call-ups, they just come up. Now I think the strongest batch is the White Sox and the Tigers, but the Tigers are honestly so terrible, but still I think their prospects might save them. They have a great defensive catcher in Jake Rogers. I think that Willie Castro will also help too. I think they will also help. And yeah, I think that helps. The Tigers are really, really good with prospects. They got a couple, but the White Sox, they're really good. They have a bunch of good pitchers like Daniel Keese. I forgot their names, but still, they have like a bunch of pitchers that have 3 or 2.50 ERAs. And plus, they recently just called up some of their young hitting prospects. I know it was the beginning of the season. They have Eloy Jimenez. I keep forgetting their prospects, but still. Chicago, I think they already called up most of their hitting prospects, and I think the end of the season is when they start to break out. So I think the young hitters that they called up at the beginning of the season are going to start to break out. Their pitching is honestly going to help, plus their schedule is not that hard. I don't know. I think the White Sox might be one of the best here. And the Royals, they have a lot of good prospects. I think it's underrated, but here's the problem. All their good prospects either recently got drafted or they're really young. They have a lot of really young prospects, so they're probably not going to get September call-ups. The Marlins farm system is outright horrible. And the Orioles, I also think it's pretty horrible. They do have a lot of good ones, but not ones that are like major league ready. So, yeah. So I think the White Sox, I think I'm leaning towards the White Sox. They get a lot of young hitters. They could or could not develop. They also have like Yohan Moncada, Yomar Sanchez, all those regular guys. But yeah. So right now it seems like the Marlins are pretty much screwed. The Orioles are screwed. So, but next I want to talk about Kansas City right now. Kansas City, and right now we are switching to the power right now. Kansas City is, I think, one of the most talented here. They got Alex Gordon, who else? They got, I know they have a lot of talent. They got Billy Hamilton, and they got Whit Merrifield. How could I forget? They got Alberto Mondesi. But they keep getting hurt too, and their pitching isn't obviously the worst. But they did trade away Homer Bailey, which is kind of a bummer for them. But still, I think they got a lot of talent. Plus, the schedule is pretty tough, but I think they could battle it out. But still, it looks like the Royals, they do have a tough schedule, but I think their guys are returning from injury. I think it's going to be just fine. I think the Royals will find a way, but they are going to be in front runner contention for the #1 pick, though, again. But in the Orioles, I think the reason they're bad is because of their pitching. They already, have set the record for the most home runs allowed in a season, and it's not even the end of the season. So, yeah, but their offense, they do have a lot of good players. And why do I keep forgetting their names? I know, but when I see their stat line, there's a lot of guys hitting in 280s, 290s. There's a couple guys, heck, even hitting 300, but still, I think their hitting is pretty bad, but not as bad as some other rebuilding teams. But their pitching is just terrible, but their bullpen is honestly not that terrible. No, their bullpen is honestly not that terrible. It is pretty terrible, but not as bad as compared to some other rebuilding teams. But again, their schedule. I think their pitching might just be terribleness. And the Tigers, oh my gosh, probably the worst roster. There's basically nothing on this team. Nothing. Nothing. But they do have kind of a weak schedule to close out the year. They do got some young players. Miguel Cabrera is not doing the worst. He's hitting 283. But still, Harold Castro's hitting in the 280s. But still, that team is just terrible. Oh my god, they're just terrible. So, yeah, in the Miami Marlins, their bullpen is probably the best out of all the rebuilding teams. It's really good. But their starting pitching offense is horrible. Downright horrible. Plus, they got no prospects to come up and save them. So, yeah, that is pretty bad. Another conclusion. Here are the teams I write off to be, not in the, front runners right now. I rule out the White Sox. I know they are pretty bad, but they do got a lot of talent. They got young players that could break out, and they got, and they do also have, farm system guys, too, that could come up. And I don't think this is tough, but, I think I'm ruling out the Royals for right now. The Royals do have a really tough schedule, but they're just too talented. Plus, I think they might win 1 or 2 games in that Oakland or Minnesota series, and I'm starting to rethink this. Yeah, they're not going to be as bad as Detroit or Baltimore, but still. It's very close between Detroit, because Detroit has an easy schedule, plus farm system guys to save them. But I think the Royals I think they're going to be probably the 3rd overall pick again. Now it's time for the for the top 2 front runners, the Orioles and the Tigers. Man, this is tough. I think the Orioles are pretty bad. They got terrible pitching and really hard schedule. So, yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the Marlins too. And the Marlins. Now this is where I kind of stumble. I don't know about this. The Marlins have no farm system guys to save them, as if in Detroit. there is a lot of young guys, but I think they might just close the deal here. I don't know. But yeah, the Marlins look terrible right now. Hideous, terrible, terrible. And they have 44 wins. The Tigers have like in the early 30s wins. So does Baltimore. But I think like Detroit's young players, that makes all the difference. Plus the schedule. But again, the Orioles have a very tough schedule. This offense is not too shabby. Oh my gosh, guys, this is tough. This is tough. This is tough, tough, tough. Oh my gosh. I think all these three teams are screwed. All of these three teams, but I might have to go the Tigers out. I'm not being biased here. I'm not being biased, but they do have some young talent. But again, the Orioles offense is kind of good. A little. But I think that the Tigers are ruled out. This might be crazy, I know, but the Tigers don't really have a tough schedule. That's the turning point. Plus, a lot of young guys are going to break out at the end of the year, kind of like what I said with the White Sox. And there's also September call-ups. You know, I think the Tigers' young guys are going to save them. They don't have a tough schedule. Plus, they do got some good regular guys, but this is really tough. But it might make some people upset, but I think Detroit is ruled out. Now, the Marlins and the Orioles. These are the front runners. Both teams are terrible. Both teams are awful. The Orioles starting pitching is just horrendous. They do have a tough schedule, but the Marlins have more of a tough schedule. They have a way below average pitching. Well, Baltimore's outright terrible. But I don't know. But here is the conclusion. Miami's offense is terrible. Baltimore does have a little bit of good play. Good guys, though. I think I might have to go with the Orioles here. The Marlins are going to be terrible with their offense, but you can't. The Orioles have a tough schedule, and you can't just get away with bad pitching in this league. Plus, bad bullpen. And I know I said earlier that the Baltimore bullpen isn't terrible, but now I'm realizing that it is. And the Marlins, they have a pretty good bullpen, and their pitching is a little bit below average. It is pretty bad. I think the Orioles will finish with the number 1 pick. The Marlins will finish with the number 2 pick. The Tigers will finish with the number 3 pick. The Royals will finish with the number 4 pick, and the White Sox will finish with the number 5 pick. What do you guys think of my predictions, and who do you think is going to be the worst team at the end of this year? Comment down below your predictions. This was hard for me, but still. Okay, bye. See you next time.